Edwards Air Force Base, December 14, 1986. The Voyager begins to lumber down the long runway. Its attempt to fly around the world is beginning. Jeana Yeager and Dick Rutan are in the tiny cockpit of this strange, flimsy craft. The wings and every other available space are full of fuel. The wing tips begin to drag on the runway, grinding toward destruction. The Voyager's designer, Burt Rutan, doesn't know if the airplane will leave the ground or if it'll be controllable when it does. The Smithsonian Institution's National Air and Space Museum is the most visited museum in the world. Its collection contains some of the most important aircraft and spacecraft in history. Craft that were designed, built, and flown by men and women who have expanded the frontiers of flight. This is the Voyager, holder of the last major first in atmospheric flight. In just over 9 days in December 1986, it flew around the world non-stop and unrefueled. It was the brainchild of brilliant California aircraft designer Burt Rutan and was built and flown by his brother Dick and Jeana Yeager. It was a unique design, extremely light with vast fuel capacity. For the first part of the flight, it ran with 2 engines, and then when enough fuel was burnt off to reduce the weight, the front engine was shut down. The story of Voyager is a story of great courage, ingenuity, and determination. It's a story of 3 people and their friends setting out to do what had never been done before in the face of immense difficulty. Jeana Yeager has always loved horses, and these days at her home in Northern California, she spends a lot of time with them. She has always been an achiever, but has never been one to talk much about her achievements.
I think Jeana is the quietest woman that I have ever known. I have seen her sit through an entire meal with 5 or 6 people there, looking first to the right and then to the left and then to the right and listening very attentively. But throughout the whole meal, she say not one word.
Jeana qualified for her pilot's license in 1978 and then went to work for Bob Truax, hoping to become the astronaut in his private space rocket program. One weekend, she was going to an air show at Chino, California, and Bob asked her a favor.
I was interested in a Rutan airplane, very easy. I said, maybe while you're down there, you could look over the very easies, because at those meets, there's usually hundreds of them. And if you can find one that's for sale, it's a good airplane, fine, let me know about it. Get all the dope on it you can. Well, she went off looking for an airplane, and she did better than find me an airplane. She found Dick Rutan. They came back hand in hand, you know, and hit it off real well.
These are the windmills of Mojave, a small town in the desert north of Los Angeles. At the time he met Jeana Yeager, Dick Rutan was living here, working as a test pilot in his younger brother Bert's thriving aircraft design business. Mojave is a unique town. Just 100 miles from one of the world's great cities, it retains a kind of frontier quality. Its focal point is the Mojave Airport, not only because many Mojave residents love to fly, but because the airport is the economic hub of the town. The extraordinary feature of Mojave Airport is the dozens of perfectly flyable jet airliners parked on the far side of the main runway, stored by their owners in the dry desert air until they're sold or put into service. When Jeana Yeager and Dick Rutan met, they simply fell in love, and Dick persuaded Jeana to come to Mojave and live with him. Eventually, they moved into a house on this street. Dick wasn't very happy working for his younger brother, and Jeana wasn't happy sitting around waiting for Dick to come home from work. In 1981, Dick and Jeana and their friends Mike and Sally Melville built two Long Easies, small, high-performance airplanes designed for home builders by Burt Rutan. When their Long Easy was finished, Dick and Jeana flew it to several world endurance and distance records in the Long Easy's class. But Dick was looking for something more. As an ex-Air Force fighter pilot in Vietnam, he found working for his younger brother restrictive. Their temperaments are different. Dick is volatile and impulsive. Burt is deliberate and logical, and tempers his extraordinary inventiveness with caution. Dick tested his brother's designs and loved flying aerobatics at air shows around the country. This worried Burt. His whole business was based on the premise that he sold airplane designs for other people to build. He was concerned that other pilots who had built their own Rutan designs might try and emulate Dick, crash, and ruin the carefully established reputation of the Rutan aircraft factory. Dick and Jeana wanted to start their own business. Dick thought they could produce airplanes designed by Burt and sell them, paying Burt a royalty. Burt's designs were based on the use of composite materials that gave great strength for very little weight. This gave the potential to carry larger than normal amounts of fuel. Burt has a very original mind. His work with composites like graphite, fiberglass, and aramid opened up a major new possibility.
Once I started working with high-performance composites and realized that an airplane could be built with its structure weighing only 8 or 9% of the takeoff weight, and it could be at least 3/4 fuel, I did what amounts to a very simple equation, a calculation, and found out that it's possible to fly around the world on refuel.
In the meantime, Dick's idea of forming a company with Jeana to produce Rutan-designed airplanes had developed. In 1981, Dick and Jeana took Burt to dinner to ask him to design a competition aerobatic airplane that they could sell. Burt wasn't interested.
Pretty much to appease him, and Jeana, she was there too. I said, listen, why don't you do something else that'll keep you busy for a couple of years? Why don't I design an airplane for you that can fly around the world non-refuel? Now, up until this time, they had set world distance records in the Long Easy, for example. And they really liked doing that sort of thing. And that spark right there launched them, essentially. I did draw the configuration on this napkin, and what really was the kickoff is they decided themselves to do it. No plans on how to get money, how to do it, but just to do it. I had a configuration that I drew for them there that would not have done the flight. In fact, it would have been a hazard to fly. But anyway, I told them, I think I can do this. And the interesting thing is they never asked me to prove it to them. They, over the next year and a half, went out and tried to get money so that they could get it built. I had agreed with them on that date to design it, but not to build it. my brother took this hunch of mine, really, and a little bit of analysis, and he went out and tried to find $1 million.
Finding a benefactor to put up money to finance the building of a round-the-world airplane wasn't easy. Dick and Jeana covered many miles and knocked on the doors of many wealthy and successful American business people. Bert was keeping the design of the aircraft simple.
I made an assumption real early that I couldn't put an enormous amount of engineering analyses and design work into the structure. And I forced myself then to a structure that was very simple.
Dick and Jeana could not find a suitable benefactor. Instead, Jeana established a kind of foundation called VIP, Voyager Impressive People. People who donated $100 to build the airplane became members, and slowly in Hangar 77 at Mojave Airport, construction of the Voyager began. Only a small group was involved. Bruce Evans on the left had built his own Very Easy. He joined the group in 1982 and became crew chief and a driving force behind the project. Gradually, materials were scrounged. An oven to cure the carbon fiber composites had to be built from scratch. For 3 years, while the day-to-day business of the Mojave Airport went on, the Voyager took shape in Hangar 77. Mike and Sally Melville were the other members of the construction group.
A lot of my involvement was just simply ensuring that we had materials, the things we needed. I was sort of procuring parts and materials and making sure it was in the shop when we needed it. But a lot of testing was going on. We tested a lot of different kinds of materials, and Dick and Jeana were directly involved in building those parts and testing those parts. But once we started actually building the airplane, Sally and Jeana together made the ailerons for the wings, and I helped Bruce and Dick build most of the parts of the airplane, and we were actually hands-on involved in building it. And it was sort of I don't know that we really believed this thing could ever do it. It was such a huge thing, and it just seemed so ungainly, and it got bigger and bigger. It wouldn't even fit in the hangar. But it was fun. It was an interesting thing to build because we'd never tried to build anything that light. And you could just put your elbow on it and break it. And if you were sanding it and you just took a rest, put your arm on it, you'd hear a fearful crack and you'd have failed a part of the thing. It was incredibly delicate.
Dick and Jeana only had occasional paying jobs. Work on the Voyager was a 24-hour-a-day obsession.
Yeah, it really was hard because I think not only was we short of money, but we were short of time and space and everything. And Dick and Michael are, to me, the very, very bestest of friends. Dick taught Michael how to do the aerobatic flying and all that sort of thing, and they're very, very close, and they trust each other a great deal. When I walked in the office one day and they were so close to blows, I had to get Bert to separate them. You really knew that the emotions of this whole thing were just building and building and getting out of hand. It was really tough on everyone.
It became very tough. There was such a lot of personalities involved, and there was a lot of backbiting and fighting, and because it just, we never had enough money, and we were always scrounging around for materials, and Dick and Jeana were working for nothing, and there was a lot of hard times, and a lot of hard feelings during the thing.
Dick Rutan and Jeana Yeager had taken on an extraordinary task. They were building an airplane that would weigh empty only 939 pounds. Fully loaded with fuel, its total weight would be 9,694 pounds, and they hoped to fly it around the world.